Hi guys, so first of all, thanks all for taking up your time and, well, for Rowan getting away from work, just about.
Just.
So, I know we've spoken about Ready or Not a lot before, both in our end of years and our own roundtable discussion. Today we're going to take on the maps of Ready or Not, because the game's been out now in full release for about a year and a bit, and it's changed a lot. I think from when we started playing it in open early access, some of the maps have either gone away completely or completely different. And because we're all nostalgic 30-something-year-olds, I've decided to refer back to an age-old tradition of a tier list. Now, I've sent it all to you in the group chat, but I'll go through the tiers from S to D. So S is 10 out of 10 with Breach again. A is Swap the Film, the best version of that franchise. Fuck the Netflix series.
Yeah.
B,
I didn't think it was that bad.
B, Justified if not moral. C, turn off the body cam. And D, LAPD level. Don't worry, no one is going to sue us. So, a few weeks ago, we jumped back in and we did levels 1 to 10. There's actually a lot more than 10 levels, including the DLC. We'll cover the rest of them in a later video. From now on, we're going to start with the opening levels. I say opening, as if 10 is an opening chapter, but just go with it.
You're going through them in story mode order, though, aren't you?
The plot. And they are technically, I'd say, the easiest to the hardest, because I think after a level 10, the difficulty goes from to you're not going to survive. There's a huge difficulty spike. So, let's start off with what I think is actually the best level. The gas station level. Now, I'm just going to open the discussion on this one. Personally, I think the fact that this level has not changed throughout the entirety of Ready or Not is one of its strong points. I think it's, right now, as good an introductory level as it gets. It's not too big. There's about 4 suspects and about double that in civilians. They've made some good decisions when it comes to introducing secondary objectives, and it just does a really good job of introducing you to the core principles of the game and the controls. I will say if there's one thing I wanted to change, and it's the reason I'm not going to put it in S rank, I'm going to put it at a high A rank, for me anyway, is I think adding that little side room where the enemies can run out sounded like a really good idea at the same time, but I've never seen it used. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I found civvies or suspects in that little side storage area or the freezer section. Still a really good map though. Probably one of the best in the game. Objective.
You want about the external building or the interior one? That's
the interior one.
Right?
So you know when we go in the main entrance, you've got that
storage closet on the right.
Yes.
I've seen people in there.
It's weird that the exterior building you were talking about on the left, it's not really used anymore, is it? It used to be.
No, it used to be, because you used to be able to go all the way through it.
Yeah.
And now I don't even think you can open the doors. But I think that's when they had the different what was it, like active shooter and raids and stuff. I think it was more used in those.
So for me, it goes in A rank for me. Snake, what's your opinion of gas station?
Yeah, I think the main problem with the gas station is it sets you up to believe that's what the rest of the game is going to be like, and you're like, that was cool, and then it doesn't actually really represent the rest of the game. I agree with everything you said. It's a good tutorial level, it teaches you how to play the game. It's actually about the size of map that I think they all should be, and I think this is going to become a recurring theme, that most of the maps are far too big. It's not that I don't like the game, I do like the game, but the maps are too big. Yeah, I actually think it's really good. I would say it's like a borderline S. I think the only thing that stops it being S is... Actually, I don't think anything that stops it being S. I would say it's very close. I would defer to everyone's judgment, but I think it's very close. I think it's the map that I've played the most, but I don't know if that's just because it's really short.
And because we usually use it for our fuck around and find out playthroughs. Yeah.
What if we only used pepper spray?
Oh god. Smee, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to parrot pretty much what you've already said, but it's fun, it's short, it's versatile, it's very easily replayable, it's very it's very well geared towards whether you want to play lethal or non-lethal. I'd put it, again, like you guys have, at A tier, but there's, like Rowan said, there's nothing really stopping it from being S tier, but it's not quite there yet. Maybe because it's a little bit too short, but yeah.
It kind of suffers from being the very first thing you play and the one thing they want to introduce you to the core controls. So they can't make it too big or important kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, very true.
Moose? You get the final say.
Yeah, I mean, nothing controversial. It's small enough that you can learn the game. Like, it's a nice little intro level, it's a nice little tutorial. The layout, as Powell said, it works for sort of multiple different setups, which is quite good. It's very easy to replay it, it's not too big. It's definitely one of the smallest maps in the game, which can be a good thing in terms of if you're trying to run different setups to try them out, but it does mean that it can get a little bit tedious because it's so small. I'm going to go, it is an S tier because it does have a lot of things going for it. It's small, which is a bit of it can count against it, but at the same time it's very easy to replay, and it's never a map that you go, oh god, we've got to play that one again. It's quite easy, it's quite fun. It's a nice little intro level to the game.
Okay. 3 A's and 1 S is kind of what I assumed for this. I was very close to S rank, and actually, out of the first 10, it is the one I almost put in there. But no, I think it's like the best starting level you can ever have for a game like this, I'd argue. Okay, level 2 is the streamer level, also known as 23 megabytes per second. Now, I think me, Moose, and Snake have actually played this quite a few times, but as we learned when we did the prep for this, Smee's only played this 3 times. So, given that you have the least amount of experience with it, and when we played it, we actually got quite surprised by a particular enemy placement. I reckon it's a good thing you start out with this one, just to give your impressions as someone who hasn't played it a lot, but still knows the game quite well.
So, it's obviously a much bigger level than the gas station, which can be quite intimidating at first, but once you realise the sort of route you need to go, that we usually go up the stairs, as far as I can tell. We go up the stairs, block off all those doors, and then breach from the sort of top down. It's quite good. It's concise and short, and there's quite a lot of interesting little features, and the verticality, the multi-level of that level provides like a decent amount of challenge. I would say though that it's much more difficult for somebody who wants to play non-lethal, because your shotgun and your pepper ball rounds are really bad at range, obviously. So if you're shooting down or up towards an enemy, it's a lot harder to get those hits than somebody who's just using a normal rifle. So I think it diminishes itself by lightly punishing non-lethal players. But there's ways around that, obviously. But for me, it felt much more difficult to do non-lethally. So I would put it at B tier, because it's still got interesting things to it. It's still got interesting elements. And the stark contrast of the level design from outside, where it's like almost like a Spanish pavilion, to inside the room where it's like bright neon colors. That's quite a nice contrast. So yeah, B tier for me.
Moose, you get the next say?
Yeah, I'm going to go B as well. I was actually hovering between B and C for this one. So it is a bigger map, which is obviously can be a good thing. The verticality is good. It's your first introduction to multiple levels. Gas station is all essentially 2D, for want of a better term. It's all single level. This is your first instance with stairs. So once you know the route to take, or at least the route we always take every time, it becomes very, very quick to do, and we can do the whole thing in probably less than 10 minutes if we're pushing. again, I think the level design of every level in the game is all really good. Like, I think they've spent a lot of time on the like the aesthetics, and they all look different. So I think that's good. So it's not really something I'm going to touch on for everyone. But I think the level's too restrictive. There's only 3 apartments that you can enter. There is the streamer apartment, there's the server farm, and then there's the apartment on the top floor that we breach into. And that's it. Every other door is totally blocked off. And I think for an apartment block, I think that does sort of kill a bit of the realism, because you know exactly where everyone is going to be at every time. And the only question becomes is if they're in the main atrium or if they're in one of the rooms. Whereas I think if you had the ability to go into the other rooms, it would make it feel far more authentic. Now, fair enough, the objectives can be in the same rooms, that's fine, but civvies just randomly hanging out in the foyer does sort of kill it a little bit. I think it would be much better to have at least, maybe not every single apartment open, but having a few more of them open. Because what I think another thing is it becomes very linear in the route you can take. There's either the external staircase or you go in through the front door and that's it. There's no way around the back, and as far as I know, I mean, I never host the game, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no other option for a starting point.
Nope.
So it becomes a little bit samey. Now, you could say the same for quite a lot of these levels, gas station as well, but at least with the gas station you can go around to the diner, and you can come in from the diner entrance, you can go in through the side door into that little freezer you mentioned, or you can go onto the other side. So there's actually 4 entrances, so that's double the entrances of this map. So I think there are some good things going for it in terms of, like I say, the verticality and the challenge level. But otherwise, I think actually it's not lazy, but I think it's a map that has a lot more scope to expand to make it more challenging than they currently have. Or at least give us like a rooftop entry. You know, come down the fire escape from the top, give us an entry on the rear side, or just give us some more rooms in there that we can go and actually explore.
Okay. Interesting view there. I'll go next. I actually put this at a low A tier. I think for the same reason I like the gas station, I think if gas station is your introduction to the game mechanics, streamer apartment is your introduction to planning and sticking to something and learning from your mistakes. Because I think we went through the main entrance once. As soon as we found out it was a bit of a kill zone, we learned, oh yeah, maybe we should take that side door stairwell. That's a lot easier. I also think the fact that it adds verticality means that you're trained to really check your surroundings before moving. Because the amount of times, back when the AI was on its John Wick run, the amount of times we got sniped from a level above or below, you know, that taught us very quickly, like, yeah, you can walk out as a squad, but if you're not paying attention to, you know, the staircase in front of you, the atrium below and everything, you're going to get picked off quite easily. I think as well, I pay attention quite a lot of the way they design the levels in terms of the environmental storytelling, and I will say the streamer apartment itself is the funniest thing. There's not a lot of funny elements, ready or not. It's quite dark game, really. That made me laugh. Just the fact that the stream camera works and you can mess around with it and then shoot it. And just the level of...
Fair. If we ignore the kiddie porn in that bit, that bit's quite funny. Yeah.
And just the amount of anime smut as well. It's like, yep, that I kind of... If you want to say Twitch streamer, that's what you expect. No offense to any Twitch streamer watching.
He's got the headset with the...
Oh no, the number of subscribers you have has just dropped by several.
Oh no, the bot's gonna unsubscribe.
You better watch this bot.
And the fact also, and it's also quite clever. It kind of deals with swatting as well in a roundabout way, because it actually get called. The whole reason you're there on the level is that the brother calls in the SWAT team, claims there's a shooting going on in a residential place. It just sounds like he's playing their version of Call of Duty really loud, and then you just stumble across a server farm. That's some quite cool storytelling without really, shoving it down your throat. Which is what I really liked about SWAT 4, the way they did level environmental storytelling. And it's not there yet with Ready or Not, apart from a couple of levels. So I do appreciate streamer level. So that's why I gave it an A. Snake, do you want to give the closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd put it high C, low B. I actually really like the level as it is. I think it's a good introduction to trying to do things non-lethally where it's a bit more tricky. And it is quite tricky, but once you know how to do it, it's not that difficult. But fundamentally, I think its great failing is the one that Moose pointed out, and it's one that is more stark on this level than any other, which is you know exactly how many enemies they're going to be. You can pretty much know almost the exact room they'll be standing in. You can pretty much tell what weapon they'll be holding. You know roughly how they're going to react. You know, like, the people in the apartments surrender quite quickly. The people out in the atrium are quite hard to get to surrender. Someone's going to be down below as you breach in above is going to shoot up at you. And I think more than any of the other levels, it's quite starkly obvious when you've played it several times that there's no sort of random generation of anything, or at least if there is, it's so subtle that I've never noticed it. And I think that drags it down for me for exactly the same reason that Moose said, which is it has all of everything there to make it a great level. And if you compare it to one we're going to talk about in a minute, House, where actually they are all over the place and they're in a constantly different location every time, a map that came out later if I remember correctly. Streamer level, you just know exactly what they're going to do and exactly where they're going to be and exactly how they're going to react, and that's quite stark. But actually, other than that, I think the level's quite fun. It loses its replayability much quicker than some of the others.
If I had to push you on C or B, what would you say? C, probably high C?
Because I want to spread everything out, I'm going to call it a high C.
Gotcha.
It'd be cool for that level if the two objective rooms could switch between the different apartments. So fair enough, don't have the other apartments as, civilian ones, but make it so that they're randomly in different locations, and obviously with different room layouts will then determine how you breach them. And would give you just different angles, and that would increase the replayability. But I don't think any of the levels do that, do they? Are they
No,
procedural?
nothing like that changes in the game. Although it would be cool.
But something like that would increase the replayability without necessarily having to, add loads of extra assets. But obviously, I'm not a game designer, so.
As if any of us are.
It's a shame you can't, maybe that one scenario where the door's barricaded, you can't get in the front door. So you have to go to one of the flats next door and Rainbow Six Siege your way into the room from next door.
Yeah. I'm about to say, if they introduce more environmental destruction, which I doubt they ever will, because I think it's a far too well crafted experience compared to Rainbow Six. But imagine if you could blow your way into the streamer apartment through his mum's apartment, which is the one that we always enter from the top floor, because there is that side room.
Yeah, you do say that though, but they bill it as more of a simulator type game, and although there is the C2 charges for the doors, there's very little reason to ever use them. There's no real incentive. But if the doors were barricaded and you couldn't lockpick, or you could lockpick them, but obviously they've got a big 6x2 bit of timber jammed up behind them, you have to use explosives to get through, or the breaching shotgun or something. And the same with certain walls, because in real life, generally speaking, unless there is a damn good reason, SWAT don't go through the door because they're renowned to be kill zones. So you go through the walls, you go through the ceiling, you go through the window, and I think that is one element of Ready or Not which is sorely lacking for a police SWAT simulator type game. It is very prescriptive of you go through the door every time.
Level 3 is Twisted Nerve, or as we like to call it, Crack House, because fuck using the
it's a Crack
name.
House.
Yeah, it's pretty much the easy way to do it. Now, out of all the levels that are in the game and that have been since early access, this is the one that's changed the most. Because it's from the era where they had different layouts based on the type of scenario you were on, and now it's just one big map, and yet it still has cut out sections of it. We're going to start with Moose, because that's going to be funny. What do you think right now about the map?
So it's gone through a lot of iterations, and I think this was one of, if not the earliest map that I remember playing in Ready or Not. And there are certainly elements of the map which I remember vividly from like day zero, and there are elements of the map which are totally new now. So in its current guise, and it is, what is it? It's the 12th of May 2025. So if you're watching this in 2 years' time and the map is totally different, you'll know why. In its current guise, I'm going to go B.
Okay.
So I am. So it's your first introduction to nighttime. So it'll be your first introduction, generally speaking, to night vision devices and IR lasers. It's also your first introduction to knives, I'm going to say.
Oh, you mean enemies carrying knives and charging you with blades, rather?
Yes, so enemies carrying knives, and also it's your first introduction to cut-throughs. And when we say cut-throughs, we mean the like reduced width, like squeezy holes that the enemy can get through if they shimmy, but you can't. Which is not something that either of the previous two levels have had. There's a bit of verticality, and it's probably a physically larger map. There's more ground that you've got to cover, per se. So, cinematically, it's really, really good. There's quite a few ways you can approach it. There's fair few different routes you can go through. It's definitely a more intense level. It's definitely more suspenseful as you're going through, because the enemies do change positions a lot more frequently. And if you don't check your corners properly, you can get knifed by a crackhead wearing a nightgown. And the only thing you'll know about that is when your screen goes red and your character goes... It does offer a lot of replayability, and it is doable non-lethal, although it's definitely harder. And I think most of that is down to the tunnel section, which is very, very difficult to do. But I do enjoy the map. I think it's a good map overall. I like the fact they've now got the two houses, because they do offer sort of something a little bit different. And I think I might be right in saying as well, it's also your first introduction to the potential for hostage taking. I don't know if the streamers do it or not, but I've definitely seen it a lot in Crack House. So you've really got to watch out, if you pop around a corner, that head that you can see bobbing around, is it a crackhead? Is it a civilian? Is it someone that's hostage? And you've really got to think about that. And I would know, because I frequently get that decision wrong. There we go. I think it's a good map overall. I think it does offer several, shotgun, SMG, shields. Like, they're all viable strats, but I do think if you don't take a night vision setup, I think you are really going to punish yourself, and you're making yourself do it a lot harder in that way. I think it's fairly good. I like the different ways you can go around it. I don't think it's S tier. I don't think it's A tier. For me, I'm going to go B tier. There's just a few bits of it which are just too frustrating to accurately do every time. But overall, I think it's a good map.
Okay, I'll go next on this one. So design-wise, and in terms of the way they took the artistic side of it, I think Crack House is really, really good and fully reaches that level of creepiness that we've had in previous iterations of it. The fact that we've gone from a couple of bare-looking rooms and some staticky TVs to like full-on cocaine storages, that section where you can see through the Ring doorbell is a really nice touch as well. The fact that the tunnels now feel more like Sicario than they did somebody managing to dig their way into a water main. The fact that the girl that's in the only nice bedroom in the place still being there and still being a secondary objective really does add some bite to the level. I will say, though, while I do agree that this version of Crack House is probably the best version of all the separate versions we've had previously. So the fact you start from down the street, the fact you've got the second house, and you can still go through the tunnels. That being said, it's mid-B level. And for one really bad reason is that because the AI can still be bullshit. So you've got the civvies. You could never tell who's a civvy and who isn't, because all of them can pull knives. And I guess in some way that's a really good way to train your mind to to shout and use the non-lethal and the way to like shout people down. But at the same time, you've got them, and then you've got the guys who cover their heads in shopping bags, have body armor, and walk around like it's Silence of the Lambs. Really good atmospheric bad guys. And also, can you ever make anyone in the tunnels give up? They're so difficult to make surrender. I think there was one playthrough I did by myself on Commander mode, where I made sure that everybody took pepper balls or beanbag shotguns, and one guy with a double barrel took out two of mine, even though he'd been hit so much, and he just refused to go down.
I think the tunnels, it's gas.
Yeah.
With enough gas grenades, I think we can do it. I think we've got an S rank on it.
We have got it. So
yeah.
Gas grenades got a massive upgrade as it went on, because they used to be rubbish. It used to be like they'd fill one room and that's it. Now they're actually quite usable in maps like that. But I also Crack House has that problem where the way your player character can snag on the environment, it's very noticeable in that. It's not exactly... It shouldn't be that big a problem, but when I get caught on something because it's right at my knee level and I can't see it in the dark that well... Like I said, it's still a really good map, and it's probably the map that most people think about when they talk about Ready or Not, because it's that iconic. It's been there since the beginning. It's gone through that many changes. And I do appreciate the fact that it teaches you about communications, identifying targets, making sure that you've covered everywhere properly. At the same time, it's just a B. It's good. It's not like it's at the same level as Gas Station, which is just endlessly fun. Snake, go with you next.
I'm actually going to call it an A tier. I really like Crack House. I like it because it's really quite difficult. It's very difficult to do long lethally, but is possible. There's a broad range of enemies, from like Grandma with a knife, who just runs at you and tries to stab you, all the way through to like almost Sicario-esque, like proper hardcore gangsters down in the tunnels. The three areas of it, so like the first building, the building you would naturally go into first, which is like a house, and the building you'd naturally go into second, which is like a house that's been purely turned into a meth lab, and then the tunnels at the back, are all quite different and all demand different tactics. It's hard enough to be really quite hard, but easy enough to be quite doable at the same time. Yeah, I really like it, actually. I think it's a good map. I do agree with all of the problems you've said, but I would caveat that by those by saying I think most of those apply to almost every map on the game.
That's fair.
The movement in Ready or Not is not fantastic. Never has been. It's not very smooth, and you do get snagged on lots of things. And the enemy are still probably a little bit too good. But overall, yeah, I really like it. I think it's really good. It's a solid map that makes me think every time, but doesn't, like, it's not... I'm not just dripping in sweat every time I play it. You don't have to be, like, an absolute game of sweat to enjoy it.
Not Call of Duty players hopped up on Adderall kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Smee, last words?
Game sweat.
Oh my god, it tastes like gamer subs and shame.
Gamer sweat. So I'm gonna put Crack House controversially in C tier. I think it's low C tier at that.
Ooh, low C tier as well.
Low C tier, yeah. So as much as it is iconic, as difficult as it is, as fun as it is, I think it's too big. I think what they need to do is just have the house. I think it's more than enough to have the house and the meth lab that's kind of attached to it, and that's it. The tunnels are really cool, and I think on their own, in a different, like if you had a smaller house up front, like a bungalow, and then you realize, oh, actually there's a whole tunnel network, I think that would be an interesting way to expand that map without having to, without making it too big. But you've already got this massive manor at the front, and then the massive med lab that's attached to it, and then these tiny tunnels, which don't really, aren't big enough to do themselves enough justice, and then another house at the back that usually has like 2 or 3 people in it. I think it's just a bit too big. I think cut out the entire back garden and the house and everything. Just have the house at the front. it would be a lot more concise. It would be a lot more like tight, and it would still give you that sort of gripping feeling that you have to be very careful around every corner.
Yeah.
It's but there's, I think it's still fun, but low C tier for me.
I completely understand that as well. I was umming and ahhing about putting it in C tier, albeit high, and then the only reason I kept it at B is that I just reminded myself it's not Old Crack House on Raid, where I couldn't even get in the fucking front door because some asshole with an M16 picked me off from the staircase down to the laundrette. That sucked. Level 4 is Brickley Talent Agency, also known as the Spider. Now, this level kind of introduces the first story arc of this... How do I put it correctly? I think the term on the internet now is PDF ring. Read into that as you will.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's a level that kind of came out of nowhere in development. Has some of the most jacked up enemies of any of the early levels as well. Start with Smee on this one.
So I think that I put this in A tier. It's got the benefits of the gas station, so that it's short, it's quick, it's very versatile, replayable. There's lots of different entry points, but it's also got that like morbidity to it, that sort of horrible twist to it that I think really suits this world, and the world building that they've been trying to do in this game suddenly hits you like a ton of bricks, and you realize that, oh shit, this is so real, it's so visceral, and I really like that. I really like that sort of gritty feeling that it tries to implement here. I think I've had so much fun when we've done this level with gas grenades.
Yeah.
The entire level just turns into green mist as you're just gassing every room. Yeah, really good, really morbid. I really like this. So A tier, very high A tier for me.
Good. I'll follow that up. I almost put it in A tier. I've kept it at a very high B tier though, because it was the first map where I think gas grenades really worked. Like, even though you're going up against private security who have some of the best weapons in the early game, because they don't have gas masks and it's such a tight map, gas grenades properly showed themselves. And while we have given ourselves a go-to route of clear out the side entrances, lock them all down, going through the roof, you can easily go through the front door. You're not henpecked into going one way or the other. Talking about the morbid elements of this level, the juxtaposition of this rundown shithole of a building with children's handprints and paint on the wall, and that changing room, and properly dark subject matter, where you don't notice it until you're doing sweeps at the end, and you're like, oh god. And that room where there's a child's face cut out of a poster, that's some very good environmental storytelling there. The only reason I put it at a B and not an A is that I think they've missed a trick with the shop, or the convenience store on the side that we usually clear through first. If they just had one person, or like somebody robbing that place, it would make sense to have it. But at the minute, it just feels like an empty set that you're just walking through to get to the main section of the map. Kind of feels like a missed opportunity, and maybe they're going to do something with it later. But at the minute, I feel like it's just wasted space, and you could just easily just go through the side gate on the outside. But yeah, I still think it's a really good level. And it's a high B tier for me, basically cusping an A. Snake?
Easy. S tier. I hate everyone in this level. I enjoy killing them all. I just, every time I get like unauthorized use of force, normally I'm like the stickler who's like, it's supposed to be a police simulator, and on this one I'm like, fuck you! And I enjoy every moment of it. S tier, easy. All I've got to say.
Okay. Coming from you, who I think you sworn more at Ollie for killing people on that game.
I was going to say, it's always unauthorized use force. Fuck's sake, Moose, on this level, it's unauthorized use force.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Cinema. And with that, Moose, our resident executioner in these games.
Look, I'm just more...
Isn't your nickname on our group WhatsApp still unauthorized use of force?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
For me, it's high S just scraping it out. No, sorry, high A just scraping into the S. Yeah. And the reason it's not a solid S is the same that Vaughn picked out. It's that convenience store. It just feels a bit weird that you go through it, and you can run through it every time. There's never anyone in it. There's no civilians. There's no enemies. There's no nothing, and it just feels a little bit odd. Like you say, they could do with just being something in there to make it worth it. Either an objective or something like that, just to give you a reason to go into it. Reasons I like it. The enemies are confined to the building, so thematically it works. You don't have them roaming the streets with guns, because why on earth would you? And yes, there is already a police presence on the outside of the building, which could account for why they're not there. But it's nice that you spawn into that map and you're like, right, okay, we know where we can kind of go. Now, even though you breach the outside into the side bit, they can come out there. That's fine, but at least on the main roadway, it's sorted. There's 5 doors to go through potentially, which I think is really good. Gives you a lot of options, and each door takes you into almost like a separate area of the building. It's first introduction to, I don't know what the term for them is, maybe like hardcore militia or like hardcore enemies.
So well-armed, well-equipped guys.
Body armor, high-grade weaponry. They know what they're doing. It's none of this, I'm a crackhead with a Glock and a knife. All of a sudden you are dealing with, assault rifles and stuff. I think that's really good. You've already touched on the thematics of the level. Again, I'm not going to go into that. I think generally Void have done a really good job at not shying away from sort of touchy topics. Like they've really gone full force into it, which again, if you're trying to make a simulator type game, really does lend some weight to that, because unfortunately that's what police and SWAT do see. I think the level is large enough that you've got some options, but it's not so large that it becomes a chore. And I should caveat this by saying we only ever play as the 4 of us. We never play with anyone else online. So some of our comments are saying the maps are too big, we need more people. Does mean that we are playing at a disadvantage for ourselves because we don't have extra people. But that's a separate thing, we'll go into that later. So I think with 4 of us, we're able to do it reasonably well, we're solidly, and we've done it non-lethally, we've done it lethally. I think it's generally, once you know where you're going inside, I think it's a really good level, especially with having a bit of roof access. I think that works really well. The only thing I would like to see is those glass domes on the roof. I'd like to see those be actually destructible, and we could breach them from the roof and shoot down inside, throw gas and stuff inside. But again, I think it goes back to the level. I think some of the levels they're a little bit too restrictive in what your options are in terms of environment interactivity. But otherwise, high A, just scraping into the S tier. If they could put something in the convenience store.
Level 5. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the full name of this, but let's just call it Crazy Guys in the Woods. It is a 3-level residence. Again, use that term loosely. With a basement level, very few suspects compared to any other level. And the main problem with this is that it is trapped up to the gills. Now, Moose has already indicated he wants to go first on this one, so fire away.
Probably the easiest level I'll have to rank in this entire game, and it's an F rank. It is by far and away it's one of the worst maps to play in this game. There's no civvies, which is fine, but it's just such a frustrating level to play. I mean, if we, to give it its dues, it's a very small map. So, if you thought Gas Station was small, this is even smaller. You've still got a bit of verticality. It is a typical scenario to which SWAT might be called in. But it's just such a fucking ball ache to play. There are so many cut-throughs that it is almost impossible for you to be always watching any direction, even with teammates. There are so many traps in there that even though you've diffused 17 traps on your way into it, you got killed by trap number 18 that you hadn't even seen. The level just doesn't make any sense when you're on the inside. And then even when you do see them, you fire at them, and then all of a sudden they're 3 levels above you and behind you. Honestly, absolutely hate this level. And every time I die on the entrance door to a trap, I'm like, oh well, I don't have to play it anymore. I hate this map.
The issue is the explosion physics don't work that well, so you've taken 2 others with you when you take out that door.
Yeah, we did do that last time. We simultaneously breached the 2 outside doors, and just all of a sudden Vorm was like, why am I the squad leader? Yeah. Meanwhile, the guys inside were like, oh well. So yeah, easy F rank.
You just hear one of the NPCs shout, multi-kill.
Yeah. Is that really B in this side?
Snake, what do you have to say on it?
Yeah, I hate everything about this level. I think the map design is deeply frustrating. It is smaller, yeah, great. We've asked for smaller maps, but deeply frustrating. It bounces between very light and very dark, so there's no ideal setup. It's very claustrophobic inside. It's the kind of building that SWAT would never, ever, ever breach into without loads and loads of surveillance. And you just use a bearcat to take the wall out, because it's an absolute death trap. And you know it's a death trap because they tell you before you go in. And it's the first time, I think, or the first time in significant numbers, you're introduced to one of their mechanics, which are the cut-throughs. You know, the little bits where the enemy can schnurgle through, but you can't, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. And when they're in the schnurgle animation, they're resistant to basically everything. So you can hit them with beanbag shotguns or gas or whatever, and basically nothing happens.
There's 2 in Crack House, but otherwise,
yeah,
you're right. This is the first level where there's a lot of them.
And the enemies are frustrating. They're very, very good. Which is fine, I don't mind good enemies, but when you combine all those things together, I would say it's genuinely the only map that I sigh when we consider playing it. I've zero enjoyment for this. I would happily never ever play that map again. And I think I'd replay every other map on the game.
Well, although Moses has put F, the lowest tier we have is D, so should I put you down for a D?
I'll go for a D, thank you.
Okay.
It's an upgrade for it.
Don't worry, on yours I'll put random super secret level F. It's me? Anything positive to say?
It's me, S rank. What?
Very controversial.
I'm going to say something controversial and put it in D. Yeah, I hate this map. It's a nice use of traps, but it's a bit too short. And I know I've been saying about the length of these maps. I know that I've been parroting that quite a lot. But it's just too short for 3 people. It just doesn't seem like it's not a particularly interesting place to go. The combatants are annoying. There feels like there's a lot of a lack of control when you enter and you're playing to their game rather than taking control of the situation, which is what SWAT really should be doing. It feels more like potluck when you get victory, and especially if you're trying to do it non-lethally, because they take so fucking long to surrender. They're just so annoying to play it non-lethally. There's no concise way of playing this level. Yeah, D tier. Hate it.
This is awkward.
Right, Paul, what do you think about this level? Be very careful with your answer now.
Hey, I'm the editor.
What do you think of this level, and why is it D tier?
I'm the editor. I can make you say whatever I want. No, so here's the thing. For everything you've just said, I counter with, it is probably one of the most focusedly designed, aesthetically and in-universe levels they have.
I don't think it's
Go
aesthetically the
Right,
best. There are levels that you're going to come off to which are far better, aesthetically designed.
So, the whole point of this is, the lead crazy is a former federal agent, right? He's the one that's in the ghillie suit and no underwear for some fucking weird reason. If you actually taken the time to look on the walls and around all of the way they've designed the rooms and everything, not on the top level, because the top level is kind of like their version of a sun deck where they just pick you off from the roof. But
I've always died on the entrance door. I've never got inside.
So if you actually take the time to look at the way they've the detail they put into the ground level and the basement where they make the Ryton factory, and listen to the audio logs, there's some genuinely cool stuff and environmental storytelling. Like there's a really crudely drawn diagram of a SWAT officer where it says, "Don't aim here, aim here." This might be like the inner single player enjoyer over multiplayer. I love that attention to detail, and the fact there's that many traps makes sense. It also makes it really funny when you, Moose, keep walking into them, even though we've always shouting, "No, no, let me check that." Oh, you're dead.
In fairness,
The problem with
you don't have to play it any longer. You're the worst one for going through traps. You check it with a mirror gun and go, "No, the door's clear." No, I didn't mean it was clear. I meant there was no trap on it. But I meant that it wasn't actually clear, but then there was a trap on this one.
I don't have all the footage, but I'm pretty sure you
Stop quoting Vaughan. Stop quoting Vaughan.
I'm pretty sure you outscore me on getting killed to traps. And also, yes, there are a lot of cut-throughs, but there's also a really unique cut-through for the lead guy. Do you notice there's an actual air vent at ground level where he can crawl up and down floors? That's a cool detail. And in terms of rank, I give it a B. And I make no apologies.
The problem with adding all of this detail into the level is it's great when you have the time and inclination to go and look at it, but what you're doing throughout the level is this.
Yeah.
Looking at traps. That's all you're doing.
I will say...
One of the classics for this level as well is if there was a mechanic that if you approached slowly, stealthily, used concealment, slowly got in, you could take them by surprise, like properly by surprise, as in, you know, their rifles are still hung up on the wall and he's not got his body armor on yet. That would make it feel much more exciting. But as it currently stands, like, he's in his ghillie suit and his gas mask with his rifle ready to receive you, but not his pants, because the implication is that he's been taken by surprise, and I find that dichotomy irritating. Yeah, Vaughan, I'm sorry you're wrong.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter what you do on the outside, the outcome is always the same. It always ends up in a firefight.
I'm going to say it is a low B tier for me, for the same reason, like that. For the situation you're being called to deal with, you are right. We could go full Waco and just burn the place to the ground and be happy about it, or not happy. Admittedly, that would be more paperwork. But at the same time, I like the fact they went for something that weird, and in a way, it's... I'm trying to defend myself. I just like it, alright? Leave me alone.
Okay, no problem.
Level 6, Eads of March, which is actually the only level I know the official name off by heart, but don't know what the fucking building's called. It's a hotel. In terms of difficulty spike, this one has a serious one, because the enemies you're facing are all army veterans, armed to the teeth. One of them has a M249 saw, but at the same time, it's quite a wide open hotel setting. And to start off with, I think I'm a little bit upset that this is the hotel level we got and not the one we used to have in early access, where it's like that construction level and the other layers. I like the story behind it. I like the fact that we're dealing with this group of, radicalized army veterans that have basically tried to kill somebody, and we've basically found their sniper's nest. I think the design of it is really cool. The fact that it's one big rectangle with a central room, and the way we do it is we clear the outsides first, lock off every room, and then go through it one at a time. However, I'm going to give this a C, and a pretty solid C at that, because I think the difficulty spike for level 6 is huge. Like, there are levels that come after this that are far easier. And I get we're up against... in terms of the game, we're up against people who've got training and the weapons and the motivation. But at the same time, put that later on. Put it later, further down the line in terms of the levels. I think the fact that they use traps makes sense, but it does bog you down. I think the secondary objectives they're a little easy to lose track of because you have to find 2 sniper rifles, but at the same time, you're too busy focusing on the amount of people shooting at you. And again, the AI comes to hit because they can hit you from stupid angles. Like there's a section where there's an outside balcony connected to one of the rooms, but because the way the lighting works, you can't see through the glass from the inside.
Yeah.
And then the first thing you know about it, you're dead. And also, the guy with the saw is just taking the piss. I know these are soldiers, but that's taking the piss. I think it was Snake talking about levels where you think it's being loaded up, and you're like, that's one of mine, but it's not. It's not awful. I think if it was further down the list of levels in the campaign, it makes sense. And while I still enjoy doing it properly, like properly locking in terms of when you just want to do a couple levels, it's not what I'd do. I'd do any number of levels before doing that one. Moose, you want to go next?
Yeah, I am high D or a low C. Now, I don't mind playing the level, okay? And especially when I'm playing with you guys, I don't mind doing the level. I think the enemies are a little bit harder, but I don't think they're impossible. I actually think the guys we've just faced in the cabin in the woods are worse because I think they tend to surprise you a lot more. And it's so much more claustrophobic. And this game can be a bit clunky. And snap shooting in close quarters is really hard in this game, or at least I find it really hard in this game. Whereas medium to long range stuff I find a lot easier to sort of line shots up. Anyway, in terms of map design, I think this map is possibly one of the worst laid out for this reason, okay? We're in a hotel, okay? We've all stayed in hotels. What hotel have you ever been to that has a layout even remotely like this? That central room, why is it that big? It makes no sense whatsoever. Also, these rooms, the hotel rooms that lead round, loads of them, you end up with like 3 hotel rooms linking into one, but they're all supposed to be individual rooms. It really doesn't make much sense to me.
The question is, how many of us are in the tax bracket where we could afford to stay in a hotel like that?
Yeah, but if that was the case, you wouldn't have adjoining rooms. Okay. If you can afford that, if you can afford a hotel room that size, a suite, you don't want it adjoining to the next room. You buy 2 suites. And that big room in the middle, it takes up so much space, but there's nothing in it, and I don't get what it's supposed to be. It just feels like it's a filler for a void. Like, in terms of a hotel layout, to me, it makes 0 sense, which kills the immersion a little bit. I find it's a very odd layout, and then all those rooms that link in together, like you say, the lighting between some of the rooms is really problematic, and you're very limited on the routes you can take. Now I know obviously a hotel tends to be a central corridor with rooms coming off it. I appreciate that, I get that, but again, I would rather have less rooms on that level and split it over 2 levels. And then potentially have something like they've blown a hole, or they've dug a hole in the floor between 2 of the rooms. So they've got 2 rooms they've booked, one on top of each other, and they've taken a hole at the wall, or they've taken a hole in the ceiling, so they can go between the levels like that. That to me would be far more thematic to what the story says that these people are doing there. Okay. So I think from a map design perspective, I think it's very linear. There's very little you can do, and it's just generally a bit shit, I think.
So would you say low C then rather than a high D, or would you say a high D rather than low C?
I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with D.
Okay.
It's not as bad a D as the previous one, but I do think
you've created your own rank for that based on this tier list.
I do think in terms of the map design, I think it's flawed.
That's why I say I prefer the other hotel level we had. I think Waverley, it was called on the original. I'd have to go back and check the footage.
I feel that this map could be improved significantly with some love.
Smee, you next.
In my second controversial opinion, I've put this at B tier.
No, that's not too controversial.
So, ignoring all of the valid points that Moose has said that I hadn't thought of at this point about the layout not making any sense. Because as soon as you said that, I went, I know he's got a point actually.
He's right,
He's right, ignoring that and focusing on the actual level, like the level itself. I think it gives you a lot of options for control. I think the balls to the wall firefights are quite fun in that level, and especially like the sort of the room to room combat is quite fun when you're playing it lethally. I think the sort of overall aesthetic is quite good. But again, it's so difficult to do less lethal. But I mean, you're going up against heavily armed army veterans, so that's not really surprising. But I enjoy the tactic that we have where we barricade all the outside rooms and then sort of focus and sweep our way around. I think that's quite fun. I quite enjoy the methodology of doing it. I don't know whether this, like Moose said earlier, we only play with the 4 of us. I don't know if having 2 other people would make that level more entertaining, more manageable, but for the 4 of us, I quite enjoy playing it. So yeah, B tier for me.
Okay. And Snake? Last say of the game? Last say on this one?
Yeah, I'm actually more with Smee than with Moose on this one. I actually do quite like this map. I think it's solidly difficult, but not impossibly difficult. I know that every room's going to be a challenge, but they do change a bit, actually. The sort of enemies move around a little bit, and they react to what you're doing, either running towards you or running away and things. So actually, you've got to be like pretty methodical in a way that actually a lot of maps don't require you to be. I actually don't think the layout of the place is weird. It's a square hotel with the rooms around the edge, so they've all got windows, and then a bar in the middle. And one assumes that the next floor up would be broadly similar, but they would have rooms where that bar is, and they would just be cheaper because they don't have a window view, which feels like quite a normal American thing based on my experience of being in America for a sort of skyscraper-y kind of hotel. But I agree, so the layout's a little odd, but not terribly so. I also like that some of the rooms are just like clearly individuals, then there's suites, and then there's connecting suites you can get, you know, the massive sort of penthouse suites where you can join 2 of them together by opening the doors between them, and I quite like that. So yeah, I think it's good. It's solidly difficult, but it's one of those maps where it's solidly difficult, but not in a frustrating way. Except for, and I would agree with, I can't remember who said it now, there's one enemy who's always got an M249 saw, and is out on that balcony, and sees you the second you come through the door, and puts 200 rounds into your general vicinity. And because of the way the lighting works, it's utterly impossible to see where they are. That enemy's annoying, but because you always know they're going to be there, because, well, 99% of the time, you can. I don't find it like destructive to the enjoyment of the level, so I'm going to call it a solid B for me.
So we do prepare for it now. It happened a couple of times, and we always know to look out that way. So the next level is Sinuous Trail, I believe is the official title, but I know it as the Mindjot server building.
Mindjot server, yeah.
I'm gonna go first because I actually just changed my ranking because my original score was based on when it first came out, aka when it was awful. Because I think it was introduced when we had the 1.0 update and the AI went back to
Adam update.
Yeah, when you're not gonna when the AI went back to you're not gonna make it through the front door mode. Now I actually think the enemy AI is fine, based on what they are. I think the decision to make them look like stormtroopers kind of gives it that weird, quirky feature to it. And I think in terms of the level layout, it is properly unique in that you've got a bunch of smaller office areas, but that huge server bit that reminds me of one of the levels from SWAT 4, and I can't remember what it was called. It's like Redwood Building or something, where you had to go through a server room there. Again, gas does work on this level because while they look like they're wearing gas masks, they're just wearing helmets. They're kind of like a bunch of people dressed up as airsofters who for some reason decided to paint all their stuff white. Like I said, it used to be a lot worse a level, mainly due to the AI. The layout's not changed that much, and I think the layout's actually okay. I think you can do it non-lethally. I think the beanbag shotguns are way more useful than you ever think they're going to be, because you hit one of those guys with them, they're still going to give up for the most point. Because at the same time, they're like this private security from Brixley Talent Agency. Yeah, they're being paid, but they have no loyalty to these people that they're looking after. They kind of do that quite well. You can get them to surrender. It's the only thing that bogs it down is that server room. While I'd argue it's the most unique part of it, it does make it very confusing when you're trying to clear it. Because I think we're all guilty of slotting one innocent civilian because we saw something move, and rather than do the proper thing of shout, we put 3 armor-piercing rounds into Sharon from accounts, who was hiding.
I also love that the last time we played it, that wasn't Moose.
It was, yes, for once it wasn't you, it was me. And we have the footage to prove it. Yeah, so for me, the ranking went from a low C to a mid B, purely because the AI has been improved, and there's a lot less bad guys. I think there used to be about 15, 16, and now there's about 10, which makes sense. It works for that level, because you know where they're going to be, for the most part. Moose, you want to go next?
So I can't really remember it from the original things. So I would say I've played it more in the last couple of months than I've ever had previously. I'm going to go A.
Okay.
I think the size of the map is about perfect for 4 people. I think there is enough space in there to give you enough space to move around and make it feel like a good level without it being so large that you get tired, and without it being so small that it feels a bit claustrophobic. I like there is a little bit of outside space where you can move around. There's a few different entry points. I think there's 3 or 4, although I've not played it a huge
Front
amount.
door, side on the right, roof entrance on the left side.
Okay, so you've got a couple of options. I think inside it's quite a good layout. It's a good mix of long range and some very tight CQB stuff. But it's also got a couple of sections where you've got those walkways and the big glass windows, which fortunately you can actually shoot through, whereas on other levels they're just impervious, and you can actually get that sort of verticality. So I think it is a good level. I think it's hard, and I think the enemies are very well equipped, but it presents a good level of challenge. And I think by this point in the game, it's fine to have that level of challenge, because by this point you should be well used to it. I don't know if I've got it on as a non-lethal run. I can't remember off the top of my head. But again, I think it's one of those levels that if you did it non-lethally, it'd feel really satisfying. Like you'd feel like you'd really achieved something, because it is a sort of good slog. But yeah, so overall, I think it's a well-designed layout. It offers quite a bit of flexibility, offers quite a lot of replayability, and yeah, quite like it.
Okay, Snake?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give it an A tier. I think it's a really good map. I agree with you, Vaughan. After the Adam update, when everyone was John Wick, because they're actually quite well armed, relatively well armoured, and there's a lot of big open walkways. It was all basically unplayable. The enemies were just so good, and far better than you could fight. Now I think it's a big-ish map, but not so big it's undoable. And with 4 people, it's all right as long as you choose your route. The enemies are tough, but again, as you said, private security, and they actually will give up at what feels like a reasonable time, pretty much all the time. I like the map; just feels quite fun, and because it's not too big. If you do fuck up, it doesn't feel too bad to go back and start again. So yeah, I think it's a solid map. I'll give it a solid A, and I really enjoy it. And it's one that if we say, oh, let's play this one, I'm like, yeah, cool. And there's also lots of different ways to run it, all of which are quite fun. So you can go for your classic sort of non-lethal, police style. Or you can just be like, fuck it, let's just go through and see what we do with rifles, which is also pretty good. Yeah, I like it.
Okay. And Smee, to finish off.
To finish off with another controversial opinion, I put this
one.
in a D tier, if I'm honest with you.
Oh.
And if I had to pin down exactly why, I can't. I don't know why I don't like this map. I just kind of don't. I don't have any reason for it. I don't have any poignant things to point out about it, other than I just find it kind of annoying. And I wish that I could give you a better explanation of why I feel this strongly about this map, but high D, low C, I just don't like it. I think it's just a bit bland. I think it's just, the server farm bit is great on paper, but ends up into a bit of a shooting gallery, and it's just not that interesting. D tier.
I will say, compared to the ones immediately before and after, it is the most generic. This is an office kind of locale compared to them, especially when you compare it to the hotel, which has it, where every room has its own style to it. But yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from on that. Level 8 is called Ends of the Earth, and now this one is quite a poignant level compared to the ones immediately before, where you are tasked with breaking up a homemade weapons manufacturer from a couple of people trying to pay for their grandmother's cancer treatment. It's all fun stuff on this channel all the time. Smee, do you want to open up on the discussions on this one?
When I said earlier about Crack House needs to be Twisted Nerve needs to be shorter and more concise, this is exactly what I had in mind. It's got the same sort of style that Crack House should be, like the small building, but with lots of occupants in it, lots of tight corridors and variation on what you can do. You can go in the front, you can go in the back. I think you can go next door or something like that. There's a side entrance that goes through like a den or something like that. I've only played this map a couple of times, but when I think it's got a really nice layout. It's a good setting. It's endlessly replayable. You don't get punished for doing this non-lethally either. Like, it's really quite fun to be non-lethal and just chucking gas up the stairs and then plowing through. I'd give this a solid B.
Okay. Snake, do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, because there's loads of people moving up and down the corridor. I need this in between chats. You can edit that or leave it in as you see fit.
Behind the scenes stuff always works well. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this is the stuff we removed from the episode. Me falling off my chair.
Yeah.
The hidden wine bottle. This has never been tea. It's colonial tea. Yeah. Anyway, I think I would call this probably somewhere between a high B and a low A. Fundamentally, for all the reasons Smee already said, this is about the size of map that I think the game suits. Mm-hmm. I think the enemies make sense. I like, obviously, the dark and gritty nature is good. But it can become a bit boring, a bit tedious, a bit overwhelming, or a bit desensitized to it. Whereas these guys, I actually kind of feel a bit sorry for them. Like, the story behind why they're doing what they're doing is really horrible, and if they lived in a civilized country, obviously they wouldn't have this problem. It's like Breaking Bad, just need to live somewhere with the NHS guys. Like, seriously. I'm sorry, Americans, but you bring this upon yourself.
If they could read or hear, they'd be really upset with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go off on a tangent briefly, but almost every problem in America is caused by Americans and the policies they implement. Anyway, but the way to solve it is going with guns, so here we are. They just need some more good guys with guns. Anyway. What was I saying? Got distracted by going down that rabbit hole. Yeah. No, I'm anti-American. I really like the Americans. Yeah, I feel really sorry for them.
So you feel sorry for the guys in this level is where you were before.
Yeah, I do feel sorry for the guys in this level. Which makes it... It's like the opposite of Brixie Talent Time. I genuinely don't really want to kill any of these people, and I want to try and do it like a proper police game, and they make it really hard for you to do that because they shoot you a lot. But that's fun. That's part of the enjoyment. Like, I want to be challenged. I want to be stretched. But the emotional stretch is really nice as well. So I'm going to say definitely an A. I think this is a solid map. It's the right size. I like the story. I like that it's not trying to be too dark for once, because it can get a bit desensitizing. I like that it tries to make me play the way that I feel like the game should be played, which is fundamentally as a police simulator, not as a Call of Duty remake. Yeah, solid data. Good map. Good map. More like this. If the developers are watching this, which I'm sure they are, they must be subscribed to your channel. It must be that bot. Then yeah, more like this, I reckon.
Okay, I'll go next. I think Snake and Smee have covered the design of the map really well. I want to cover. It's taken me 8 levels before talking about the music, which is kind of my thing when it comes to overall presentation. I think this level does a really good job at making you empathize with the people you're going up against. Not only from the way the environment tells a story, but as well the way the music changes. Because when you find in the room the money that they've made from the sales, and you're like, oh, okay, so they're not exactly altruists, doing this. But then when you read on the PC in one of the kids' rooms about the bills that are piling up and about the treatments, still being really rough, and you hear the lines from the grandparents talk about how they're just doing it for them, it's like, it does a really good job at trying to tug on your heartstrings, and the music kicks in perfectly when you're in the end, when you're at the end and you're actually in the gun workshop, and it's not a well-oiled machine. It's guys with a couple of presses and a workbench in an attic, surrounded by boxes of stuff that they've taken from another another, like an old house or something. Like the music in this game almost goes unnoticed for the most part, and you usually only ever hear it when it kicks in at a gunfight. But there's those quiet moments where you just look around the map after you finished and you're just doing a sweep, and it does a really great job at hitting you in the feels, for lack of better term. I keep it at a high B because I think some of the choice. So I reckon it would have been better if they'd had 3 relatives walking around with guns rather than 2 relatives and 3 randoms who are like clients or something. If they'd made it even less bad guys, but they're just spread out better, because they seem to kind of, like towards the end, you'll always know that there's 3 guys up in the attic. You don't know where in the attic they're going to be, but you know they're going to be in there. And then it's just a case of making sure you don't accidentally slot the grandmother coming out of her room. But yeah, I think in terms of overall presentation, that level's really good, and it's just the gameplay aspect that keeps it from being an A for me. Moose, you have the final say on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you've already covered a lot of it. I think I'm going to go S. Like, in terms of a map design, it's... If you said you're going to go play a police SWAT simulator game, I'm willing to bet a vast majority of calls that SWAT get called to are residential houses, such as that one. So, it's not messing around, story side and stuff, all that aside. It's a well-designed house. It's big enough inside that you can move around without feeling really claustrophobic. There's enough levels that you've got, a new challenge on each level. You can go around the outside. There's lots of windows you've got to pay attention to. There's a lot of things on it you've got to pay attention to. But it's quite a fun level. There's a lot of replayability. You can do it lethal, you can do it non-lethal. And you're right, you kind of don't want to shoot these people because I would, again, I'd like some more environment interactivity. Like if you shot the oxygen tank, it would do something, whereas at the moment it does nothing. So you can lob a flashbang into that room and nothing's going to happen. Whereas in in real life, same with gas grenades and stuff, you need to be aware of what's in the room. If you lob a flashbang into a meth lab, it's gonna go boom boom, there's got to be big explosion. Whereas in this game, you can lob 17 of them in there and nothing happens. And I get that coding and stuff, I presume there's reasons, but I still think if you want to make it a simulator, you need to make consequences part of it. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to go S. It's a great little design. It's a nice little short map. It's perfectly doable with 4 of us. Quite a little fun one to do. Not too hard, not too easy. Good little map design overall.
Okay. The penultimate level we'll be discussing in this video is called Grease Palms, also known as the Postal Service level. This one is a bit weird when you compare it to the others because it's got a load of little rooms to start off with and then a huge maze slap bang at the back. I think we'll start with Moose on this one.
This is a hard one for me because I frequently enjoy playing this level. Because if I want a bit of a gunfight, I know for a fact this is going to be a level where you are going to get a gunfight, like no questions asked. So it's quite good with that. There's a good mix of CQB and a good mix of long range in it. And it's quite a hard level, so if you want a bit of a challenge. On the other hand, this level is incredibly frustrating to play because it is very, very difficult to isolate the enemies and isolate the gunfights so that you can control the situation and move through them slow and methodical. It's not too bad in the initial rooms, in the, what is it, the post office bit at the front, or is it a shop?
The actual post office, like, store kind of place.
Yeah. It's not too bad there because, again, it's of a size that's, somewhat comparison to, say, half a gas station. So you know what you can do, and you can flashbang the doors, you can barricade bits and bobs and stuff you can go through. That's okay. As soon as you get into the sorting office, it's just another kettle of fish. Like, you either, as soon as one person starts firing, be it the SWAT, your guys, or an AI, everyone jumps in, everyone starts running around, and it becomes very, very difficult to see people moving through all the sorting bits, which makes it so hard to play and so frustrating. And flashbangs and gas and all the rest of it have got a limited effective range. And that area is so open that unless you get it, the throwable where you need it, it has no impact. But it's so difficult to see where that person is. It's very, very hard. And then things like that Pfizer agent, he is just, honestly, that guy is just hankering to stick his mouth around the end of your gun. Like, he is so hard to actually deal with. And I mean, I've shot him God knows how many times because he just draws on you and fires. And because the gunfights can be that chaotic, before you realise who you're engaging, it's like, objective failed. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've done it on S rank. I don't know. I don't think I've tried it enough to get there. And I presume with a bit of time, a couple of sessions, we could probably do it. But I just don't get how I can sort that big open area. So on the one hand, like I say, I like the level. On the other hand, it's really frustrating. So I'm going to go high C, low B. I think the level design, just pure map design, I think is quite good. It's obviously very accurate to an actual posting sort of thing, and that's kind of cool because, well, not many games have you in a post office sorting facility type thing, and it's like nothing else in the rest of the game. It's not. I mean, there's, in terms of houses, there's Crack House, there's Grandma's House, there is Cabin in the Woods, and I'm sure there's another house. Well, there's 4 houses. How many variants on a house can you have? Whereas this is quite a unique map. So that's good, but it is a frustrating map to play, especially if you're trying... Even if you say we're just going to do it fully lethally, it's frustrating to get through without, major damage and civilian casualties and so on. So yeah, high C, low B, I think. I just... love-hate.
Snake?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. It's one of the few maps where there's nothing really to love about it. Like, it's pretty much every part of the map is slightly frustrating. It's another classic example of a map that in reality it's utterly inappropriate for a 6-man SWAT team to be trying to do this.
Yeah.
You're looking at probably a platoon of SWAT going into something like this, with 4 or 5 entry points and lots of armoured vehicles, and to be doing it with one. I agree. It's very chaotic. You're never really sure where you're being shot from because the sight lines are so long and the enemies are such. They're not deadite targeting you, like their accuracy isn't amazing, but they're deadite spotting you, which means they'll engage you from ranges where they are literally pixels on your screen, which I think is less than exciting. I don't hate the map. If we're just running through with some rifles and we're just plinking people just for blowing off some steam, absolutely fine. But it's not a map that I actually enjoy trying to do seriously, because it's just such a nose to do. And I agree with Moose. Your less lethals are so ineffective that it just makes them very tedious to use. So I'd say like low C, high D, probably high D.
Okay.
Yeah, probably high D.
I'll go next. So this one, for me, was one of the trickiest to explain why I'm only putting it at a C, because the concept of this this deal gone wrong in a postal sorting office, that's quite a cool concept. I think Moose is right. Like, there's very few times I can think of where such an environment's been used. The last time I played a game where something similar was Max Payne 3, when you're in the airport at the end of it and you're going around the luggage conveyor belts kind of thing. But I've focused on 3 main problems with it. 1, the Pfizer agent subplot. Completely useless. He does not need to be there. If you read the briefing thing on your tablet beforehand, you find out that as well as this Pfizer agent, there's another guy who's like 3 days away from retirement who's reporting all this. Just finding him in his office and the evidence he's got, that's all you need. You don't need another, random outlier on this. 2, that annex building that's on the right of the main entrance and that we usually clear last, the one with the metal detector, you do not need that bit. It's already a huge level just from the main building. You don't need that extra bit that usually gets forgotten about and that people run off to. And 3, as stupid as it sounds, because I am not a designer when it comes to industrial buildings, I feel like the way that layout on the conveyor belt section, it makes no sense. Even, I don't care if that is how they are like to walk through. It doesn't make sense to me. I had a real problem with the dock level before the 1.0 release, where it felt like a labyrinth for no reason. Because when you look from the outside, you think, oh, it's just like a random office building, and then it turns into a maze when you try to walk inside. I don't like the conveyor section. I think there's a reason we always go from the outside in the loading dock, because we bypass all the really tight interior rooms at the start, and then we just funnel people towards us. If you try and go in for the front, you're going to get shot. So you better have a shield. And you are right. Playing it non-lethally, I can see how it's doable. I do not want to try it if I'm just loading up the game for a quick session. That's something I want. That's something I'll have to dedicate a proper, gameplay session to, rather than a quick, let's just screw around for a bit. So the cool concept behind it's kind of let down by the choices they made surrounding the details. So that's why for me it's not a low C. It's a solid C for me. Smee, you have the last word.
Everyone has already said all of my bullet points. The annex is pointless. The sightlines are annoying. It's too big. It's not particularly it's an interesting concept, but not particularly interesting in practicality. It's a C. The only reason it's C is for the points that you made, where if you just want to go and shoot some fools, you can. That's fine. But aside from that, yeah, D.
Such a shame, because there's so much you could have done with that kind of setting as well.
It also brings me on to a quick point. It's one of the few levels where you think, one of the magnified scopes would be really useful, either the 1 to 6 or the 1 to 4. And I've used them once, and oh my god, they're so frustrating, because they don't actually, from what I can remember, they don't actually give you any magnification. They just sort of give you a crosshair on a scope, and you're like, really frustrating. Now, I haven't used one for a long time, so they might have changed it, but it's one of the few maps where you actually look at it and go, that would be really useful because of the long sight lines. It just seems, I think they need to rework the scopes, but separate issue.
And now the last level we'll be covering in this video, Vol House, Vol Residence. Probably one of, if not the darkest levels tonally, I think it only just beaten by New Dock, which we'll get on to in the next video. Snake, do you want to open up? About your feelings or about this level? Which one comes first?
Both. Yeah. This is a solid level. I actually really like this level. I'm going to give it a solid A. I think it's almost too big, but it just manages to creep in there at the right size. Because even though the level is actually quite large, the number of individual rooms is not too big. The layout of the house is mental. Like, if you just walk around the house, you're like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And especially the front downstairs, where there's just like loads of weird glass rooms. Like, what are they? Like audio booths or something? I don't know. Fucking weird. But anyway, I think it's a really interesting level. I think the mixture of like family members, private security, party guests, etc., that sort of combo works quite nicely. I agree it's very dark, but they managed to do it very well. I remember the first time I went down to that basement and I was like, Jesus Christ. And it still gets quite a visceral reaction from me each time. I just think it's a solid level. I guess the only very mild point I have against it is it's very similar to Post Office. Because the enemy can spot you from basically, if they can physically see your character, they will see you. Like, there's no really two ways about it. So you can sometimes be engaged from places where you're like, it's unbelievable that they would have seen me and engaged me. But it's not usually all that bad. Solid level, really good, really enjoy it. I like doing it non-lethally, I quite like doing it lethally. And with 4 people, that's plenty of people to do it in either way. You just got to go a bit flak happy, but other than that, it's really good. Or gas happy, gas works well on this level. That's me.
Okay, Smee?
I put this at S tier. I really like the level design itself. Like you said, you've got this sort of massive opulent mansion with like its own cinema room and multiple bars. It's got like all glass and it overlooks the LA type valley, or the sort of Hollywood Hills type valley, that sort of very opulent lifestyle. And then you go down a set of innocuous stairs and you end up in what can only be described as hell. The seedy basement where there's all this stuff going on, and then the finale bit, I guess you could call it, where you go in, you find the hard drive, you have to go in there to get this hard drive, to get this other bit of evidence, and you see what's on the walls. And like Snake just said, it still gives you a visceral reaction. I still love that contrast, that like hidden seedy underbelly that funds the lifestyle that these people enjoy. It's an innocent 16th or 18th birthday party or whatever it is, and then just underneath, just below their feet, is something insidious and evil. The enemy is quite good, like the sort of private security. They're not too heavily armed, and what they're armed with makes sense for that kind of scenario. But they don't go like balls to the wall shooting you like the army vets in Ides of March or anything like that. I really enjoy this. The ability to go non-lethal and lethal as well, like Snake just said, is really good. It's really rewarding. Solid S from me.
Okay, Moose?
Yeah, I'll give it an S as well. I think it perfectly sums up we've all seen the Hollywood movies where they're in these, like mega mansions overlooking like San Fernando Valley and all the rest of it.
Is that what we're calling them now? Hollywood movies?
Many of them are made in Hollywood, so Hollywood movie is technically the right choice. But yeah, that map is the perfect embodiment of what those mansions look like and stuff, and we've all seen them in a variety of films and all the rest of it. And I think it's a hard level with 4 people. It's probably easier with 6, so it's a good size. You've got a bit of verticality in there. You've got some staircases, you've got the open bits, you've got the windows that you can actually shoot out of, so you can look down onto the party level with the pool, and you can have a gunfight and stuff through there. I think that's really good. I think the layout, it doesn't feel too claustrophobic inside. I like all the little sort of art decor bits and stuff like that. It does sell it as what's supposed to be there. And then, like you say, you go downstairs and it's all of a sudden it takes an absolute nosedive, and then you're like, are they burying bodies in the basement? Although I've only been in the basement about 3 times because I always get shot on the stairs as we really frustrating. But yeah, I think overall, I think it's an absolutely brilliant map overall. And every time we play it, I'm like, yeah, I'll play this map. It's a good map. You can do it lethally, you can do it non-lethally, and again, shotguns work on it, SMGs work on it, assault rifle, shield. Like, I feel like there's quite a lot of variability in your setup. It doesn't shoehorn you into taking a single type of thing. Like post office, you have to take an assault rifle. Like an SMG, it just doesn't have the range. A shotgun just doesn't have the range. Whereas this, I feel you've got quite a few options in your setup, and I like when the map gives you options. Like you're not forced to take a specific loadout. And again, the private security, they do surrender, but they will put up a solid fight. So overall, I think it's probably one of the better levels they've done, both from a design level, a physical design level, and a storytelling design.
Okay, I'll finish up on this one. So for the most part, when we spoke about this game, God, almost 2 years ago now, when we had our roundtable discussion about where we thought this was compared to SWAT 4, which is the natural comparison for it, I said that I wanted a few more levels that kind of really nailed the environmental storytelling. And to me, this level isn't just good. It is the best level in the game, full stop, no questions asked. For anyone, we've all played SWAT 4, I'm guessing not as much as each other, but...
Well, if there's no questions asked, I guess we can just finish this video here, can't we?
I do have an explanation. Do any of you remember the Tyrone tenement building level?
Yeah, I remember SWAT 4 very well. It's an excellent game.
So, the reason the Tyrone tenement building works so well as a level in terms of how it's paced is that every time you move for a new room, something adds to the overall tone and story of it. So you go into the residency and you notice all the bunks lined up and like random cult type scriptures laced up. Go to another room, you see where they're building the big fertilizer bomb. You go into another room, you see the preaching area where they've got all the propaganda and like the pew where the guy's spouting his craziness. And then you go to that basement where you see the graves of all the children. Vol House is nailed what Tyrone Tenement Building did. Every new area of Vol House adds to this really... The back of your head's like, something's not right about this. Like, you go in the front door and you see this huge portrait of the owner with his 18-year-old daughter looking a little bit too familiar with one another. You keep moving through and you see a random package saying, Judy, don't touch this, it's a surprise. You notice as well that from the front door it says all guests go down the side entrance, no going through the front door. You get to the party section by the pool. For some reason there's a feet pick station. And we've all mentioned it. That basement, that I don't know how Void have managed to make a subject that dark and that controversial, and they've managed to nail doing something like that in a video game of all things, and it not feel exploitative. You could have gone down the really bad, that you're just doing this for shock value, or you're just doing this to get attention. No. They nail it. They absolutely nail it, and it's that entire section, the room where it's got all the photos of the person in question. It's that room where there's a crib with a camera and a bunch of tapes on a shelf. It's like anything I have to talk about the AI, the overall design of the map, and some of the bits where you get bogged down is completely negated by the fact that it is the best paced level in the game, and it's not even close. I honestly, I don't think the closest the game does in terms of that, in terms of it, also for like the length, is maybe the new version of Doc, but that has its own problems that we'll talk about in the next video. So yeah, I genuinely think this is the best level, and it's not just an S, it's like verging on Uber S level for me. I think we all agree it's great. I love it. It's like what I wanted from this game from the off.